Hi, good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm happy to be here and wanted to personally thank the CNCF community for having this event. KCD Pakistan, thank you for having me. Today's talk is going to be about Skaffold and how to do local development on a Kubernetes cluster. A little bit about me. My name is Zubair. I'm currently working as a senior SRE at CPAP.com, which is a leader in medical device distribution, selling products for sleep apnea. I've been there for about 6 months. Overall, I have 12 years of experience with a core focus on automated infrastructure, on-prem technologies, and cloud deployments. I specialize in solution architecture for cloud-native deployments, microservices, API development, CI/CD pipelines, and automated infrastructure. Skaffold is an amazing tool you can use for local development on a Kubernetes cluster. I'm able to locally test my changes without having to redeploy all the time. It speeds up feature development and enables faster release cycles to production. In today's world, a common workflow we might come across is you check out a branch on your project, you modify source code, you make a pull request. That pull request then gets reviewed by your teammates. You merge the changes. It builds your changes, building your container and pushing that image to an ECR registry or harbor. Then after that, you update the deploy manifest, which then applies the changes, and then you can finally see them live. Now, if you look at this image on the bottom, Skaffold reduces the amount of steps it takes to get there and for you to reach your end goal, enabling a faster release cycle and better productivity. So let's go over the problems we're going to solve today. So now, once you modify the source code and save your changes, Skaffold scans your entire project for code changes, then automatically updates the image with your new changes and deploys that new image on your Kubernetes cluster. My objective is, by the end of this session, I will teach you guys how to use Skaffold and how to utilize this tool. I'll show you how to configure your workspace so you can build, push, and update your application. And then I'll show you how you can deploy and see these changes happen in real time. Let's get started. We're going to be deploying a front-end Node.js application on our minikube cluster. We're going to need the following tools to get started. We're going to need minikube, homebrew, and Skaffold. I want to go over this project. It's called Skaffold Node.js project. You guys can go to GitHub, clone this project, and below you'll see a README of all of the instructions I'm going to go over with you today, and you guys can use this to follow along. So I've already cloned this project, and I've opened up VS Code over here. So let me take you to the package.json first. And this is just any normal package.json. This is a very basic Node.js app. It's going to have all of your dependencies here needed to deploy this application. Let's open up the index.js file. It's in the source directory. Here we have a regular Node.js app making a GET request with a handler, and the response status is going to be 200, and the message that's going to display in the browser is going to be local development hello world. Our app is going to listen in on port 3000. And right now I want to take this time out to quickly summarize a list of other places where you will need to make these changes to accommodate for this. So when we're creating our Docker file, we're going to expose port 3000 right before we run this npm run start command. Also, when writing our service manifest, we're going to set the port to 3000 as well. Our deployment manifest container port will also be set to 3000. Now let's go ahead and open up the Docker file. And so here we are using a Node 16 image in our build stage. Our work directory is going to be called app. Then we're going to go ahead and just copy over the package.json file. We're going to be running an npm install. And if you see here on line 11, as I mentioned above, we're going to expose the port to be 3000, and then finally run the npm start command Right, let's go ahead and move on to our deployment manifest here. Let's make this like this right here, so everyone can see it on the screen. We've created our Docker file. We're moving on to creating our deployment manifest now. So we're going to name our deployment app. We're going to set the label to be app as well. In our deployment specification on line 8, we're going to have one replica running. And as you can see, it's going to map to that label that we set above, calling it app. In our pod specification, down here, line 16, 17, 18, and 19, we're going to set the name app for the container. And it's going to go over the image name that we have, which is called Express app. And as I mentioned before, we're going to set the container port in our deployment manifest to 3000 right over here. Okay, so let's summarize what we have so far. We now have a Docker file, that's one. We have a deployment manifest. And now we're going to create our service manifest. Our service manifest is a way we're going to expose our Node.js application to the outside world. And as you can see on line 4, we have named this service to be app-service. So app hyphenated with the letters SVE. And in the specification of the service for this type of service will be exposed on a port on each node. So we have the selector, which is there to identify the pods that they're a part of this service. So our selector is app because that's what we named our deployment manifest in the steps before. And I've also mentioned that this port will be exposed on port 3000. So there you see on lines 10 and 11 that it will be exposed in port 3000. Let me open up the scaffold.yaml now. So now we have put together our Skaffold YAML file. This is your Skaffold config file, which is what is used to build and deploy this application. As you can see, there are profiles that are defined here on line 4, which are used to define the command that's going to run and on what environments it's going to run. And the source files where the index.js lives, that is where all of the files will be synced. It's going to be syncing all of the JavaScript files inside of this project. On line 14, you'll see it is in glob format, which means it's using wildcards to match all of the multiple files that are JavaScript files that are in the source directory. Okay, so once we're done deploying the service, you will be able to see this service display somewhat of a local development hello world on a browser. So let's go ahead and run this. We're going to be using Skaffold dev, and we're going to pass in the port forward flag, which is going to build our image and deploy it on our minikube cluster. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you can see, it's got the Express app over here. It's generating the tags, and you can see the deployment and service manifest have been created. The deployment app is ready, and it says the server is running. Let's go to the browser here. Whoops, went the wrong way for a second. Let's go ahead and refresh the screen, and you can see here on localhost 3000, you'll see the same text that we've seen in the index.js file saying local development hello world. Now let's go ahead and change this text to something else like local development KCD demo and save the changes in that JS file. Let's go ahead and bring it back to the index.js. Local development, KCD. Let's go ahead and save. And we're going to go back to the terminal. Now, see, it's going to sync the changes here. Now let's go back to the browser. And you'll see that message right there, local development KCD. Let me go ahead and create a new tab over here, and we'll see the pods while they're running. So we're in the default namespace on our minikube cluster. So as you can see, this app is running right here. We can go ahead and describe the app. Which is inside of this namespace. Whoops, forgot the PO. So it's kubectl describe PO, pod name, and then the namespace that it's in, which is the default namespace. And there it is. As you can see, it's running on our minikube cluster. There's the node. It successfully created and started our container. Let's go ahead and look at the service. kubectl get service, the default namespace. There you have our service running on the node port. Port's 3000. Said before, let's go ahead and describe the service. It's inside of our default namespace, as I mentioned before. Go. And the name of the service, type node port. There's 3000, port 3000 right there. And if you want a nice URL to look at, there's a minikube dashboard URL command you can run. And I'll give you this fancy URL here. And you can take this URL, go to your browser, put it in here. It'll basically show you the app. There's the pod, only one replica running, as I mentioned before. Let me make this a little bigger. So like I said, there's our pod right there. Our pod is running. We did it 3 minutes ago. Running one replica. Go to our services. There's our service. Launched that service 4 minutes ago. It's on port 3000. And that's it. All right, to sum things up, to conclude, leveraging tools like Skaffold enables faster production release cycles. It enables developers to quickly develop, test, and deploy applications and envision them as they would be in their AWS EKS cluster in production. We have started using Skaffold for all of our new projects here at CPAP. So basically, for any organization that has a cloud-first approach, they should value what Skaffold brings to the table. Skaffold is the only tool that handles the workflow, building, pushing, and deploying Kubernetes native applications locally. Listed below are the resources I used to make this presentation. The Skaffold docs have pretty good, easy to follow tutorials, so take advantage of that. Also, as mentioned before, on my GitHub, you'll see the Skaffold Node.js project. I want to thank everybody once again for joining me at the very first KCD in Islamabad, Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum and have a wonderful day.